Hello everybody, it's Friday and I am back with a new video of Kostya. I decided to make a kind of slower video and not speed everything up because I would like to show you slightly more in detail what I've been doing the past few days. As you can see here, I have been working a lot on his hip joint and making sure everything connects, and basically I've been trying to make them fit together better over the ball joint of his thighs. So here I have started putting clay down to lower the edge of, or the edges of the hip joints, so they rest more on top of the ball joint. And at this point I felt kind of satisfied with them. Well, not satisfied, they're obviously not done, but they're good enough. They're well on their way to being finished, so that makes me very happy. This process has been a lot faster than it was with Ask, and that has both surprised me and made me very happy and kind of proud, because it means that I've learned a lot along the way of making Ask. That makes me happy. So yeah, I'm constantly checking back with the ball joint into the socket just to see what it looks like and if I have to reshape anything or if it's fine the way it is. And most of the time it is fine the way it is. I end up adding more and more clay to it in tiny bits and pieces, because I didn't want to overdo it straight away. It's easier to just add tiny bits of clay at a time than just adding a lot of clay with no clue of what you're doing and then having to remove all of it in one go. So I took it slow. Next up, I started working on the knee joints. I think the knee joints are one of the most entertaining parts to work on, because I just love the way dolls bend their knees, especially with this type of double joint that I'm currently using or making. And as I showed you here, the joints are well underway, but they're a bit too small for the sockets in the legs, so I had to add clay to them. And I kept checking back and forth before I decided to just add the clay onto the sides of the joints, because if I had added it to either the front or the back, the joint wouldn't fit anymore. I just needed to make it slightly wider. Same goes for the second joint, as you'll see in a second or two. They ended up looking pretty big, which I'm not used to at all, since Ask is so small compared to Kostya. So it's kind of fun to make something a lot bigger than what I'm used to. It's interesting. I think the knee joints are almost as thick as one of Ask's legs. And that says a bit. Well, okay, I might be over exaggerating there a bit, but I think you get my point. They are huge, really huge. I mean, I think they're huge just looking at this. The clay around the edges of the lower leg that I'm currently using, or working on, I mean, the right one is, well, it was very brittle, so I actually ended up fixing that in the end. I just noticed that some parts actually had broken off at this point. That stuff happens all the time, it doesn't even bother me, because you have to reshape and remodel so much of the doll before you're finished. At least for me, it's been that way. So yeah, just adding more and more clay and making sure it fits into the joint shapes on the thigh and on the lower leg. And they ended up looking pretty good. After this, I will have to add like little sort of ledges on the inside of the thigh and the lower leg, just so the joint doesn't disappear into either of those parts. But in order to make them, I had to make sure that the joint fitted into the holes first, because otherwise it would be kind of difficult to make ledges for something that you don't even know if it's gonna be able to touch these ledges or not. So the ledges act like a kind of locking mechanism, making the joint just stay where it's supposed to stay, and except for when the leg is actually bent. So yeah. Hopefully I'm gonna remember to show you guys what I mean with these ledges in another video, which will probably be up soon. After the knees, I went on to the torso again because I wasn't very happy with how the upper part of the torso was sliding on top of the belly part. Like, you can slouch back and forth very good, but to the sides it looked kind of wonky and the movement wasn't very good. And after that, I also tried out the hip joints movement on the lower part of the belly, and I figured I had to add some extra clay to the locking mechanism inside the hip joint, because part of the back kept sliding into the hip joint, something I've been meaning to fix for a while, and I just thought, okay, what the heck, let's just fix it. It doesn't even require that much attention or time. So yeah, I just added clay onto the little extra piece that's inside the hip joint that I just showed. So I basically just made it thicker inside there, just to make sure that the belly part doesn't slide any further down into the hip joint. It kind of stops it in place, if you understand my meaning. I also did the same for the front, because I noticed it could, when I bent the hip, like when I slid the hip forth a bit, I noticed that the belly part sort of slid, it bent a bit too much, and so I fixed that while I was fixing the back of the locking mechanism. And I don't think there's any right or wrong ways of, like, there's no right or wrong ways of doing these things. It's just trial and error, and look at what your other dolls are like on the inside. Try not to copy straight off, even though that's pretty darn hard. But just try to do your own version of things, I suppose, if you're gonna do something like what I'm doing here, like locking mechanisms and whatnot. So yeah, I just put the belly part back into the hip and fiddled around for a bit until I was satisfied with how it bent, and then I accidentally messed stuff up, so I had to fix it. But you know, it's soft clay, it's very easy to fix. And that is all for today, guys. I hope you liked my little babble about what I've been doing. I'll be back next week as usual with new videos, both drawing videos and more sculpting stuff. So yeah, I'll see you around, guys. I hope you have a lovely weekend. I know mine will be great. I'll see you around. Bye bye!